what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Hemali here, and thank you so much for joining me today. First, I just want to say there is construction going on outside of my house, so if any of that picks up on camera, I'm really sorry for all the noise, but I can't really do anything to help it. So a couple of weeks ago, I put up a video answering your guys' period problems, and it was just such a great video. I had such a good time doing it that I thought I should do this for more topics, and my next topic was brown girl problems. So I put up a story asking you guys to send in your brown girl problems or annoyances or whatever you have, so that I could respond to them. Some of them I'll respond to with advice, some of them I'm just gonna react to it because I don't even know if there'll be a solution. It's just like something that we gotta go through together. But yeah, I just thought this video would be fun and make people feel like, okay, you're not the only one going through this problem. I got a ton of responses, and a lot of them had to do with parents and expectations, and also with like dating and marriage life, or like I guess love life. So I'm actually gonna break this video down into 3 parts. I'm gonna do one that's more dating, marriage, relationships. I'm gonna do one that has to do with parents and expectations, and I'm gonna do one that's just overall brown girl problems. So this video is gonna be the overall brown girl problems, and then I will link the other 2 editions below once I've uploaded them. Okay, so let's get right into it. So the first problem that I got from a lot of people was hyperpigmentation. I think so many of us brown girls suffer from hyperpigmentation, whether it's your armpits, elbows, knees, eyes, mouth, whatever it is, we all kind of suffer from it. The first thing I want to say about that is that it is nothing to be embarrassed about. We all have it, so do not be ashamed of it. It's part of who we are, and that's okay. I totally understand if you feel like covering it up sometimes or lightening it or whatever it is. I think it's just like, it's kind of like putting on makeup. It's like, it makes you feel good, but it should never be a reason for embarrassment. And I feel like that's how I felt when I was younger. Like, I had dark circles, and when I left the house, I felt like I needed to wear makeup, otherwise I was gonna be ugly. I felt embarrassed about them. I just didn't want people looking at my face. But then as I grew older, I realized it was nothing to be embarrassed about because everyone has it. And I felt so much more confident in my skin walking out the door with my dark circles and like the shadow around my mouth and anything like that, because I felt like this is who I am, take me for who I am. And if not, then I don't really care. I don't care for you. And when I started building that type of confidence, it really changed my perspective about hyperpigmentation. And I do things to still help my hyperpigmentation. I like cover up my dark circles and whatever still, but I don't find it something that I'm embarrassed about anymore. I do it because I feel like it's part of my look. It's part of my maintenance that I like to do for myself. For example, I like to put on makeup for myself now, not so much because I want to cover up my ugliness. So I think if you start doing things for yourself like that, instead of being embarrassed by it about what other people will think about it, it changes your perspective of hyperpigmentation a lot. Now, I've never experienced hyperpigmentation too much on my knees and my elbows, so I'm not really sure what you can do about that. But in terms of my eyes and my armpits, I can totally speak on that. For my eyes and my mouth, I love having a great color corrector that'll just really brighten up those areas. For me, something that is more of a peach type of color works really well. The Vasanti Liquid V02 is my absolute favorite color corrector. I'll leave it in the description below so you guys can purchase one if you want. But that has been my go-to for years. If you have a little bit more melanin in your skin, I would say going for something that's a little bit more orange would really help as well. Like the MAC Prop and Prime Peach Lustre is a great color corrector. Same with the orange color corrector from LA Girl Cosmetics. So putting on a color corrector before you put on your foundation or concealer or anything like that really helps. In terms of like natural remedies for your eyes, I would say getting really good sleep, drinking lots of water really helps, and I love the Ulla Henriksen Banana Bright eye cream. I find that that has lessened my dark circles. It hasn't like gotten rid of them, but it definitely has reduced them. In terms of my armpits, I feel like I get questions all the time about my armpits and how I've kept them so light. So I realized when I was shaving my armpits, it would it would create this like grayish, greenish, brownish type of like shadow under my armpit. And I guess because the hair is still, like the root of the hair is still in the follicle, so it would start like creating that like darkness. But once I started waxing and lasering, I noticed a huge difference. So I would highly suggest that if you want to wax or laser, because it takes the hair right out of the root, and it makes the hairs look a lot thinner too. So that's really helped keep my armpits light. The next brown girl problem that a lot of you guys talked about was being too hairy. Oh my God, I know this problem a little too well. I am so hairy, like, and I've been maintaining my hairiness for as long as I can remember. When I was younger, I pretty much had a unibrow. I had pretty hairy sideburns. I had, I didn't have like an extreme mustache, but like I did have like a shadow. And my back, that was one thing that I was like the most embarrassed about. Growing up, I was so afraid of people seeing my back. Like I felt like I was the only girl in the world that had a hairy back. And then as I grew older, I like started talking to people and everyone's like, yeah, I have a lot of hair on my back too. My back hair was a lot more than a normal person's back hair for sure, but it was, I guess, comforting to know that other girls also had back hair. I wasn't allowed to do anything to my back, so I would like secretly shave my back without my mom knowing. And it was just really bad for it because I started getting like ingrowns, and I started like the skin on my back just started feeling really rough. And so then eventually, as I got older and I started making my own money, I started getting my back waxed, and it was like the best thing that I could do. Now I get my back lasered and it is absolutely incredible. I love it. I think laser for us hairy girls is godsend. I feel like it does take more sessions for us to actually get rid of a lot of our hair, but the hair growth is so minimal. It's like insane. And even when the hair grows back, you can barely see it. So even if you are hairy, like you can barely tell. It honestly took me a long time to get comfortable with my hairiness. When I was younger, I used to make sure that I shaved like every little hair off my body. Like I hated it. I hated being hairy. And then as I grew older, I just started realizing that, you know, everyone's hairy. Like there's nothing you can really do about it, and it's just a part of who I am. So why am I so worried about what other people are thinking? I'll still shave my legs, I'll still shave my arms, but I don't do it as often and as thoroughly as I used to when I was younger. And I totally remember getting made fun of for my hair all the time too. My back, I know my family used to make fun of my back hair. I remember in grade 10, I had this guy come up to me and he's like, you have a mustache. This was like in science class, and he like came up to me, he was like, you have like a mustache. And I was like, oh my God. It was just so embarrassing. I remember up until like, I think grade 5, grade 6, I used to wear like long sleeves all the time because I didn't want people to see my hairy arms, even though it was like, it would be like the dead of summer. It would be so freaking hot outside and I would still be wearing long sleeves just because I was so embarrassed of my hair. And yeah, as I grew up, I'm so happy that was like one of the things that I got over. And I think it really came from the fact that I started to realize other people were hairy too. It wasn't just me. I think when you're younger, no one really talks about it, so you don't see it or notice it. And then kids can be like really mean as well. And you just start to take everything to heart. But yeah, as I grew older, it just didn't bother me anymore. And I hope that's how some of you guys start feeling as you get older or after watching this video, whatever it is. I hope you start coming to the realization that being hairy is it's just a small part of you. You know, your hair doesn't define who you are. It's really about what energy you put out there in the world, and not just like what you look like. It's honestly so unfortunate sometimes how much we define ourselves by our looks rather than our mind. Especially when we're younger. I feel like when we're younger, that's all you kind of look at and that's all you pick apart. And it makes you feel so isolated and just like not worthy enough. And then hopefully as you get older, at least for me, as I got older, I started to realize there's so much more to me than just my looks. and I started letting my mind do the talking and my mind defining who I was instead of what I look like all the time. And that's not to say you can't care about your looks. I love dressing up, I love putting on makeup, but I don't let that define who I am. I let my thoughts and my intellect and my care and love and passion and all those other amazing things about me define who I am, and my looks are just, again, a tiny, tiny little part of me, and that's how I like to look at it. I also got some pretty similar questions about careers, and rightfully so. I think careers is a very hard topic to talk about as a brown girl. All the questions were along the lines of how can I convince my family that I want to do XYZ career when they actually want me to become a lawyer, doctor, accountant, engineer, whatever it is. I think this is something that keeps a lot of us up at night, and all I have to say about your career is you have to follow your heart when it comes to your career. You cannot listen to what your parents have to say. And I think your parents always have good intentions as to why they're telling you to do this. They just want you to be successful, taken care of. They know these jobs make good money, and they just want you to be able to be financially independent. But at the same time, you have to do things that make you happy. Your career is something that you spend majority of your life doing, and if it's something that you're going to be absolutely miserable in, you are 100% going to be miserable in your life as well. You have to remember with really important life decisions like your career or relationship or whatever it is, that you need to do things that make you feel good, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of resentment, and your mind is always going to play that what if game. Like, what if I did become a makeup artist? What if I did pursue art? What if I did get into acting? And that's something that you have to live with. That's not something your parents will ever feel. So if you feel like you're gonna really regret it, then I think that's your answer of pushing back and being like, this is what I want to do, and either accept it or don't. It's unfortunate that some parents aren't very accepting of it, but I think sometimes if you take the time to really explain it to them that this is what you love, this is what makes you happy, that you know, if things don't go well, you can always go back to becoming an engineer or doctor or whatever else it is. That option isn't taken away from you. I think it's important to explain to parents that when you have a passion for something, you'll actually go out and do it and chase your dreams and want to do something wholeheartedly. And when you do something wholeheartedly, you genuinely excel in it so much more than if you were to do something just because it makes you money. I personally think the end goal in life isn't to be like the richest or the most famous or whatever it is. It's genuinely about being happy. And when you're happy in all aspects of your life, you live a good life. It doesn't matter if you're making millions of dollars or $50,000. Are you happy though? And sometimes that's how you need to explain it to your parents is, this is what makes me happy. Do you want me to be miserable for the rest of my life? And you also have to promise that you will put in the work to do what it takes to get there. Like, the grind is real. Like, going after these other types of jobs that do make you happy, that might be a little bit more artsy or whatever it is, can be really, really tough to break into. And you need to be able to prove and show your parents that you are willing to do the work. And honestly, sometimes that comes with a lot of setbacks. It comes with a lot of tears. It comes with fear. When I went into makeup, I felt like the world was against me. My parents were really not happy with it, and I felt like I was just set up to fail. But I kept grinding and I finally made a breakthrough, and it really showed my parents that, okay, she is serious about this. And once they started seeing that I was okay, it made the process a little bit easier. And I know it's really unfortunate that our parents aren't always on board with it right away, and that you really have to prove them wrong. But just take it as a part of the process. Just take it as like, okay, you know what? That's just one obstacle I need to get through. And it is something that makes you more resilient, and it makes you smarter. It makes you tougher. It really helps your work ethic. And at the end of the day, as much as you feel like your parents are pushing you away from doing it and that they have a huge say in it, It is your decision. You have to remember that. It is all your decision, and you do not want to wake up in your life and look back and be like, man, I really regret not doing that thing. I feel like parents will always come around, especially once they start seeing that you're doing okay. And it's going to be a very lonely journey at first, especially if your parents aren't on board. You're gonna have a lot of people talking down on you. You're gonna have a lot of people saying that you can't, or that this is a stupid idea. And you have to just keep your head down and keep moving forward. It is so unfortunate that people aren't supportive all the time, but I can promise you that is a projection of their own fears. They may have tried it and failed at it, or they may not have tried hard enough, or maybe they were in the same position as you where they had dreams and they were destroyed by the people around them saying that they can't, they can't, they can't. And so they project those same fears onto you, and you have to kind of shut that out. You have to shut it out and do what's best for you. So don't give up. It's just the beginning of the journey. It's super hard, but once you get to the top, you're gonna feel like you've never felt before. I can promise you that. Like, from experience, when I was first going through it, when I first told my parents that I wanted to pursue makeup, man, like I felt like everyone was against me. And then when I finally actually got to a point where this became my proper career, I was making really good money off of it, and I could support myself, and I was doing everything that I loved. It made just everything, all the dark times, the sadness, the fear, the anxiety, everything that came with it, made it all so worth it. I got a few problems around mental health as well, and we all know mental health in the South Asian community or in brown community is just like, there's a huge stigma around it. Two responses that really stood out to me was not being able to speak your emotions because they don't believe in mental health, and being judged for being emotional and having anxiety. It is so unfortunate that there's a huge stigma around mental health within the brown community. Mental health is just as equally important to take care of as your physical health, and it is so hard to grasp that concept sometimes because it's not something that's tangible. At least with your physical health, you can see it. I think for generations, people just have not been able to talk about their mental health because they're more so in survival mode. Like our parents, I feel like, were in survival mode. When they came here, they had no money, they didn't really have any connections, they didn't know the language as well. They were starting from scratch, so they didn't have time to think about how that was affecting them mentally. They didn't have time to talk about their feelings. They didn't have time to express their emotions. They were just told to do what they were supposed to do, get things done, and move along. And that definitely does something to your own mental health. You start thinking that, okay, well, I got through it, so why can't you? But they don't realize that by not dealing with your emotions and trauma and whatever else is going on in your mind, that it comes out in different ways. It comes out through things like addictions or anger issues, or just not being able to connect with people properly. And I think we've gotten to a point, especially as first generation kids, where we have the privilege to actually take the time to think about our mental health and take the steps necessary to actually care for it. And we always look to the older generation for answers, but you know what? Sometimes they don't have all the answers, and it is our job to also teach them the importance of things that we've learned and come to realize. It honestly is so unfortunate that we feel like we can't always turn to our parents or family or a community for help, but there are people out there that are more than willing to help you. And there's so many resources online as well to help you kind of get through those moments. And I think the more that we talk about mental health, the more normalized it will get. It is our job, because we are aware of it, to normalize it, whereas maybe our parents or other generations just haven't been exposed to it as much as we have. So it's our job to teach them, and if they're not willing to change their minds, at least it is our job to go and fix these things for ourselves, so we don't continue to pass on generational trauma. For me personally, I decided to take my mental health into my own hands. I didn't really involve my parents into it because I just didn't feel comfortable going to them about it. And I started doing things like meditation, Reiki, journaling, exercise. All those things really started to help my mental health. And when I started feeling like I was in a better space, that's when I started talking to my parents about it, and I felt like I could come from a place of healing and not feeling resentment, because I think a lot of my mental health issues came from being brown and feeling like these unrealistic expectations and feeling so much pressure, and just feeling like I didn't always belong. And so once I started doing things to make my mental health better, I could have better conversations with my parents or people around me that didn't fully understand the topic, because I could, I guess, really differentiate between what it felt like to not be in a good place and what it felt like to be in a good place. And sometimes I feel like when you're in a place of anxiety and depression and just like not in the right mental state, you start to blame it on others. And even if it is the cause for some of your anxiety and depression, you can't let them control your life. You still gotta it still is your own life, and you gotta take it into your own hands to make sure that you're okay. It is your job and your job alone to do that. It would definitely be nice if other people helped you with it, but unfortunately that's not always the case. And when you start doing these things to better take care of yourself mentally, you start to grow different perspectives on the situation, and you're able to, I guess, approach situations with more sympathy and empathy rather than resentment and regret. So take the time to really do what it is to help your mental health. Don't rely on other people, and then go back to these people who don't fully understand the situation you were in, and just explain it to them and come from a place of sympathy and empathy so that they can better understand why mental health is so important, rather than you coming from a place of, I guess, resentment and, I guess, more attacking them. And if they don't understand, they don't understand. That is a them problem. Do not let that affect you and who you are and what you're going through. You tried your best. You did all that you could to best help that situation. And then the rest is up to them to decide whether or not they want to change, just as how you decided that you wanted the change. I got a few problems about clothing. I think this is always a topic that people bring up, especially when you're a brown girl. Oh my God, you can't show too much cleavage. Don't show too much skin. Don't show too much leg. I got people saying you can't wear short clothes. Aunties worrying about the way you dress. I get comments all the time of like, how do your parents let you dress like that? How are you allowed? Don't people say anything to you and stop you? Honestly, I've gotten so many comments about the way I dress from my parents. There's been times where I've worn a dress and my dad will be like, that looks too short, doesn't look good, blah, 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 like you need to cover up more. And then like a week later, my sister wore the exact same dress. We own the exact same dress. My sister wore it and my dad didn't say anything to her. I think our parents are always just kind of trying to protect us. There's like the one hand of people looking at you inappropriately, like sexually, and then there's the other hand of people knowing that people are gonna look at you inappropriately and sexually, and so they think that you're bringing that onto yourself by dressing like that. And so they're worried about the what will people say type of people. If that makes sense, that makes sense in my head. What I've told my mom is I dress the way I dress because it makes me feel good. And I get when I was younger that they want to be a little bit more protective of that. And I can fully understand that, because when you are younger, sometimes you do things for attention. Like you will show more cleavage for attention. You will wear things that are a little bit more scandalous because you think that's what everyone is doing and that's what you need to do to fit in. And that's what will make people like you, and that is unfortunate. And if that is the reason you are dressing the way you are dressing, that should never be the reason. I'll just tell you that right now. You should always just be dressing for yourself. And as I grew older, I learned that. When I was younger, I feel like I definitely wore things sometimes for attention, not all the time, but sometimes. And it's such a toxic mentality to have. And I think as I grew older, I understood the importance of dressing for myself. If I like it and I feel good in it, then that's why I want to wear it, not because I think it'll get the attention of some guy or get me more likes on a post or something like that. I had to really learn how to love my body in order to dress like this. I felt like I was always put to shame about the way I dressed. I think body shaming and the way you dress kind of go hand in hand. And as I started to learn to love my body, I became more confident in what I did, whether that was showing cleavage, whether that was covering up, whether that was wearing something really short. I just felt happy with who I was and what I looked like, and it was never for the intention of someone else. And that's kind of what I explained to my mom. I'm like, I dress for myself. It's never for the attention of someone else. And if someone else thinks that, then that's their own problem. People are always going to have something to say about the way you look, and the way I look does not define me. It is something that is so personal to me, and if people are just judging me based off of what I'm wearing, then they have bigger problems. Like, they have other issues going on with themselves that they need to correct. I feel like as women in general, we're so shamed about how we look all the time. Like, we're too thick, too skinny, showing too much cleavage, not showing enough cleavage, whatever it is. And the way we feel about our looks especially relies so much on the outside world, or we're made to feel like it relies so much on the opinions of the outside world. And it's not. Like, that is our own. That is something that we need to take back. And I think by people always telling us you shouldn't be showing so much cleavage, or you shouldn't be showing so much leg, it just like it's provocative and it sparks the interest of men, and they'll start looking at you weird. I feel like, why are we educating our men to look at us differently? Like, why are we sexualizing our breasts so much, or our legs so much, or whatever it is? Like, why is it that when we're showing it off, it's automatically sexualized? And I feel like that's because we've been told so many times that you shouldn't be doing this because otherwise people will think this. If someone else can't control their sexual urges against you, then that's on them. I feel like that's so weird that we put that on women to control men's urges. Like, that's your own like, your sexual urges are your own responsibility. Like, you wouldn't see me going around looking at a hot guy with his shirt off and then being like, why is your shirt off? You know what that does to me? Like, that makes me aroused. Like, why would you do that? And then justifying why I raped him, or whatever nasty thing that I decide to do. Like, how does that justify? Like, those are your own actions. You can't blame that on somebody else. Like, that always boggled my mind. And so I get it comes from a place of protection, but there needs to be a change in the way we think and the way we view women, especially, and their bodies and the way they dress. It honestly does mess with you when you're constantly told you can't look this way or that way or this way, especially when the messages are so conflicting with each other. Like, oh, you shouldn't be showing so much cleavage, but sex sells. Like, people will like your picture more when you have your boobs out. And I think it's because we've been taught to constantly sexualize a woman. And I feel like that's something that we need to take back for ourselves. I feel like I should be able to dress however I want to dress. Our looks shouldn't define who we are. And I also feel like when I dress and I do show a little bit more skin, I don't feel like I'm doing it in a very provocative way. I just feel like I wear stuff that makes me feel confident and sexy, and there's a difference. Like, I don't feel like I think there's women that will go out of their way to wear things that are very provocative and sexual, and you can tell. And that's okay too. If that's your goal and that's what you want to do, that's on you. You know personally what type of message you are trying to send out. So you can let that sit with your conscience however you want. But for me, I feel like when I put on clothes and I'm showing more skin, there's times that makes me feel sexy, and it makes me feel confident, and it makes me appreciate my body and love it for what it is. And also you have to understand that there is like a time and place. Like, you know, it's not always appropriate to be wearing stuff with so much cleavage, or like something super short. So just be mindful of that too. But other than that, I feel like I can't pay no mind to people who are so obsessed with the way I dress and how I dress. Like, it is, I personally feel like it's none of your concern the way I dress. And I've never understood why it bothers people so much the way other people dress. It's like, just let them do them and worry about your own self. If you don't like the way I dress, then don't dress like that. Just dress your own way. Like, I don't know. I've never understood why that irritates people so much and why they find the need to talk shit about it. The next comment I got was, people think they aren't smart enough and won't fight for their rights. I feel like brown people are always brought up on the mentality of not questioning anything and just like doing what you're told. At least I was. And I personally am just the type of person to question everything. I'm just like, well, why can't I do that? Or why can't I do this? And I think that's why I ended up, I guess, rebelling a lot or not caring what people think, because I would always ask the question why, and no one would ever have a good enough response for me as to why. I think as a culture, we're just kind of brought up on that mentality of like, you know, be happy with what you have, don't ask for more, don't step out of place. And to me, I feel like you should always question why. Like, why shouldn't you be doing those things? And if there is a reasonable answer, okay, understood. Like, I won't step out of place. But a lot of the times there isn't a reasonable answer. And I think it's really just this mentality that we're all brought up on. And if you, I guess, stray away from that mentality, you're seen as like a black sheep. Like, oh, she's the only one that's not like following the rules, she must be bad. And it's not that you're bad, it's just that you're curious and you want better for yourself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting better for yourself. But with all that judgment comes the feeling of not feeling like enough, because people are always attacking you. They're always questioning you as to why you're going against the grain, and you know in your heart it's right. And I think that's the only feeling that you really need to listen to, is that you know it's right. You know it's right for you, and that you're not living your life for someone else. So don't be afraid to question why and fight for what you believe in. We're brought up so much on doing what you're told, and if you don't, then you have no respect, and it's so not true. You also need to have, like, respect doesn't just go to the older generations. Respect also needs to be given to yourself, and I think you owe it to yourself to fight for your rights, to fight for what you believe in. And when you do that, people will always question you. They will always question you and try to put doubt in you, and you have to rise past that. It is one of the hardest things to do, but when you do, I promise you will feel so much self-satisfaction, like it's unreal. Okay, so I have one more question that I'm gonna end this video off with. It's a little bit confusing, and I'm not sure exactly what they mean by it, but I'm gonna interpret it the way I wanna interpret it and answer it that way. So the question is, you ever feel like you would be free if you weren't Bessie? And then the second part I don't really understand. It says, and with the added pressure of being one. I assume they mean that by being Bessie, there's like extra pressures that are added to your life just for being Bessie. And if I wasn't one, would I feel free? I feel like when you're younger, you only get a part of the picture, and then as you grow older, you start to see how much your culture makes you into who you are and how beautiful that can be. I think you definitely feel a sense of wanting to be free, especially when you're going through the rut of it, and when you feel so restricted, and when you feel like suffocated, and you feel like you don't fully understand what's going on. But when you start to step back and look at the bigger picture, you start to realize how being Bessie has made you into who you are, how well-rounded you are, how beautiful you are, how kind-hearted you can be, all those things. So yes, I felt the feeling of wanting to be free from my culture before, but if you were to ask me that now, like in this moment, I wouldn't change it. I would want to be Vessi. Like I feel proud of where I come from, and I think that takes time to come to that point in your life, especially because we've grown up in a society that is predominantly white, right? Like I guess, yeah, like predominantly white in the sense that that's all you kind of see on TV or in the media or whatever it is. That's all we kind of grew up on. It's only very recently that you started seeing things become more diverse. So yeah, especially growing up, you would feel it even more. But now that I've, I guess, gotten older, I appreciate it a lot more than when I was younger. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna end it off there. I will be doing 2 more videos like this, a Brown Girl Problems Dating, Marriage, Relationship edition, and then a Brown Girl Problems Parents, Expectations, that kind of stuff edition. So if you guys have any questions related to those topics, leave them in the comments below. But for now, I'm gonna head out. So if you did like this video, please do not forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. And as always, thank you so much for all the constant love and support you show me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!